The silver ship appeared without warning above Earth's moon, massive and gleaming like a knife blade pointed at humanity's heart. Commander Veltar of the Zephyrian Confederation stood on his bridge, studying the blue-green world below through sensors that had mapped 1,000 conquered planets. This one looked no different from the others, another primitive world ripe for harvest. Captain Jake Morrison was reviewing supply reports aboard Liberty Station when every alarm in the orbital facility began screaming. His coffee cup shattered. On the deck as he rushed to the command center, where Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez was already coordinating with Earth Defense Command. The massive alien vessel had appeared on their sensors like magic, technology far beyond anything humanity possessed. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission," Rodriguez reported, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "It's coming through on multiple frequencies, somehow translating itself into perfect English." Morrison nodded grimly and activated the main screen. The alien that appeared was tall and elegant, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes that seemed to look right through him. When it spoke, its voice carried the casual arrogance of someone accustomed to being obeyed without question. "Greetings, primitive inhabitants of the third planet. I am Commander Veltar of the Zephyrian Confederation's exploration fleet. Your world has been selected for integration into our glorious empire. You will surrender all governing authority to Confederation representatives and prepare your population for relocation to designated labor sectors. This is not a negotiation. This is an announcement of your new reality." Morrison felt something cold settle in his stomach, but his expression remained calm. He had spent 20 years in the military, rising through the ranks by keeping his head when others panicked. "Commander Veltar, I'm Captain Morrison of the Earth Defense Force. I appreciate your interest in our world, but I'm afraid we must decline your generous offer." The alien's expression shifted from bored superiority to amused condescension. "Decline? You misunderstand the nature of this communication, primitive. We have absorbed 23 species into our confederation over the past 8 centuries. Each believed they could resist. Each learned the futility of opposing a superior civilization. Down on Earth, Dr. Lisa Parker was frantically analyzing every piece of data streaming from the alien ship. As humanity's leading xenobiologist, she had dreamed of this moment her entire career, but not like this. The linguistic patterns, the casual dismissal of human autonomy, the reference to other conquered species, everything pointed to humanity facing something far worse than invasion. They were facing systematic enslavement. Their communication protocols suggest a highly stratified society, she reported to General Frank Collins at Earth Command. The language patterns indicate they view other species as resources, not equals. "Sir, we need to assume hostile intent." Collins was already 3 steps ahead, his weathered face grim as he coordinated with military commanders across the globe. Within minutes of the alien transmission, every human military installation had gone to maximum alert. Submarines rose. To launch depth, fighter squadrons scrambled, and orbital defense platforms powered up weapons that had never been tested in actual combat. Back on Liberty Station, Morrison maintained his diplomatic facade while his crew prepared for the worst. "Commander Veltar, perhaps we could arrange a meeting between our respective leaders to discuss terms that might be mutually beneficial." Veltar's laugh was like crystal breaking. "Terms? Mutual benefit? You speak as if you have something to offer besides labor and resources. Your species has not even achieved basic interstellar travel. Your weapons are chemical-based projectiles. Your social structure is chaotic and inefficient. You offer nothing we cannot simply take." The alien commander gestured dismissively. "However, the Confederation is not without mercy. If you surrender immediately and begin preparing your population centers for processing, we will ensure your transition to productive citizenship is relatively painless. Resistance will only result in unnecessary casualties among your people." Morrison felt his jaw tighten but kept his voice level. "And if we require more time to consider your proposal?" "Time?" Veltar seemed genuinely puzzled by the concept. Why would inferiors require time to accept the obvious? Nevertheless, we are not unreasonable. You have 72 of your planetary rotations to prepare for integration. Use this time wisely. Organize your population centers, compile resource inventories, and identify individuals suitable for administrative positions under Confederation oversight. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Morrison staring at a blank screen. Around him, his crew waited in tense silence. Finally, Rodriguez spoke up. "Sir, what are your orders?" Morrison turned to face his people, seeing fear and determination in equal measure. These were good people, professionals who had signed up to defend humanity from whatever threats might emerge. None of them had imagined that threat would come from the stars, but they were ready nonetheless. Rodriguez established secure communications with Earth Command. Priority Alpha protocols. Miller, I want everything our sensors picked up about that ship analyzed and forwarded to Research Command within the hour. Johnson, begin preparation of all defensive systems for immediate combat readiness. As his crew rushed to their tasks, Morrison opened a private channel to Earth. General Collins appeared on his screen, looking like he had aged 5 years in the past hour. "Jake, what's your assessment?" Morrison considered his words carefully. "Sir, they're not invaders in the traditional sense, they're exterminators. This isn't about conquest or resources. This is about one species that considers itself superior, deciding that other species exist only to serve them. They've done this 23 times before, and they expect us to roll over like all the others." Collins nodded grimly. "That's what Dr. Parker concluded as well. She's found references to systematic population relocations, forced labor programs, and what she diplomatically calls genetic optimization initiatives. Whatever that means, I don't like the sound of it. Sir, with respect, I don't think these aliens have any idea what they're dealing with. They keep calling us primitive, but their own behavior suggests they haven't faced real resistance in centuries. They expect us to surrender because that's what everyone else has done. And we're not everyone else," Collins said with grim satisfaction. "Jake, I'm activating the Prometheus Protocol. Every defense installation, every military unit, every resource we have is now dedicated to one goal: showing these aliens that humanity doesn't surrender." As Morrison signed off, he looked out at the alien ship hanging in space like a sword of judgment. In 72 hours, Commander Veltar would return expecting to find a broken species ready for chains. Instead, he would discover something that had never existed in his orderly, predictable galaxy. A species that preferred death to slavery, and had spent its entire evolutionary history learning how to kill things bigger and stronger than itself. The countdown had begun, but Morrison suspected the aliens had no idea what they were actually counting down to. 72 hours later, Commander Veltar returned to Earth's solar system with the 47th Pacification Fleet, expecting to find a surrendered world preparing for integration. Instead, his sensors immediately detected something that should have been impossible. The primitive orbital stations were powering up weapon systems that registered energy signatures far beyond what their technology should have allowed. "Impossible," Veltar muttered, studying the readings. "Their industrial base cannot support such weapons development. They lack the fundamental understanding of quantum energy manipulation." His tactical officer, Sub-Commander Nexhai, looked up from his console with confusion. "Sir, we're detecting over 40 armed platforms in orbital positions around the planet, plus numerous smaller craft moving to intercept positions. The energy readings suggest weapons capable of significant damage to our vessels." Veltar dismissed the concern with a wave. "Readings can be deceiving. These primitives may have activated some crude nuclear devices in desperation. Maintain approach vector. Begin standard intimidation protocols." On Liberty Station, Captain Morrison watched the alien fleet approach with grim satisfaction. 72 hours had been enough time for humanity to surprise themselves with what they could accomplish when survival was at stake. The orbital platforms now bristled with hastily installed railguns, particle beam weapons reverse-engineered from captured alien communications, and nuclear-tipped missiles that could crack asteroids. "Sir, we're receiving multiple target locks from the approaching fleet," Lieutenant Rodriguez reported. "They're not responding to our warnings to maintain distance." Morrison nodded. Earth Command had been very clear about rules of engagement. The aliens had declared their intentions. They had given humanity an ultimatum. They were approaching with weapons powered. Under every law of war humanity recognized, this constituted a hostile act. All stations, This is Liberty Command. You are authorized to engage hostile targets. Repeat. You are authorized to engage. The first shot came from Orbital Platform 7, a converted mining station that now mounted a railgun originally designed for launching supply pods. The tungsten penetrator struck the lead alien vessel at 17 kilometers per second, punching through what the aliens considered adequate armor and venting atmosphere into space. Commander Veltar felt his ship shudder and immediately demanded a damage report. How is this possible? Their weapons cannot penetrate Confederation armor. Sir, that wasn't an energy weapon. It was a physical projectile moving at impossible velocity. The impact energy was equivalent to a small fusion warhead. Before Veltar could process this information, 43 other orbital platforms opened fire simultaneously. The space around Earth lit up with weapons fire that had never been seen in this galaxy. Crude but devastatingly effective implements of war designed by a species that had learned to kill efficiently or die. Lieutenant Colonel Amy Rodriguez led humanity's first space fighter squadron into battle. Her modified atmospheric fighter struggling with the unfamiliar environment, but responding to her touch like the thoroughbred war machine it had been converted into. The alien craft were sleek and beautiful, designed more for psychological impact than combat effectiveness. All units, these things maneuver like flying museums, Rodriguez called over the comm. They're built for intimidation, not dogfighting. Hit them fast and hard, then break contact before they can respond. The human fighters swarmed through the alien formation like angry hornets, their primitive but deadly missiles finding targets that had never been designed to face determined opposition. The Confederation pilots, trained in formal combat maneuvers against demoralized opponents, found themselves facing tactics that made no sense by civilized standards. On the alien flagship, Veltar watched his carefully organized fleet dissolve into chaos as human fighters ignored all conventional rules of engagement. They attacked from impossible angles, used their own damaged craft as weapons, and showed a complete disregard for personal survival that violated every principle of rational warfare. Sir, we're losing ships faster than we can coordinate defensive. Fire, Nex High reported, his voice tight with something approaching panic. These humans fight like madmen. They're ramming our vessels with their damaged craft rather than retreating. Below, Dr. Richard Hayes was coordinating the technical analysis of alien weapons and defenses from his laboratory deep beneath the Colorado mountains. Every piece of data streaming from the battle confirmed his initial assessment. The Confederation had grown soft from centuries of easy victories against helpless opponents. Their defensive systems are optimized for energy weapons and conventional explosives, he reported to General Collins. They have no effective countermeasures against kinetic weapons or nuclear devices. It's as if they've never faced an opponent willing to use brute force tactics. Collins nodded grimly as he watched the battle reports streaming in. Humanity was winning, but at a terrible cost. They were facing technology centuries ahead of their own, compensating with raw determination and a willingness to sacrifice everything for victory. Doctor, how long before they adapt to our tactics? Hayes considered the question. Sir, based on their response patterns, I don't think they can adapt quickly. Their entire military doctrine appears based on psychological intimidation rather than actual combat capability. They've never needed to learn real warfare. In space, the battle was reaching its climax. Commander Veltar found his flagship surrounded by human fighters that seemed to appear from nowhere, strike with impossible accuracy, then vanish before his gunners could respond. His proud fleet, which had never suffered significant casualties in 8 centuries of conquest, was being systematically destroyed by primitives using weapons that shouldn't have been able to scratch Confederation armor. Sir, I'm reading massive energy buildup from the planetary surface, Nex High reported. They're targeting us with some kind of ground-based weapon system. The weapon that struck Veltar's flagship was a hastily constructed particle beam cannon that drew power from 3 nuclear reactors and focused it through focusing arrays built from melted-down telescope mirrors. It was crude, dangerous, and completely outside the Confederation's experience of civilized warfare. It also punched through the flagship's shields like they were made of paper. As his ship shuddered under impacts that should have been impossible, Veltar finally understood the magnitude of his error. These weren't primitives cowering before superior technology. These were predators who had spent their entire evolutionary history learning to kill anything that threatened them, regardless of size or apparent advantage. "All ships withdraw to minimum safe distance," he ordered, his voice tight with something he hadn't felt in centuries: fear. "Prepare emergency hyperspace jump." As the surviving alien vessels fled, leaving nearly a third of their fleet as expanding clouds of debris, Captain Morrison allowed himself a moment of grim satisfaction. Humanity had won its first interstellar battle, but he knew this was just the beginning. The aliens would return with more ships, better tactics, and a healthy respect for human determination. On Earth, President Karen Thompson addressed a world that had changed forever in the space of 72 hours. "My fellow humans, today we learned that we are not alone in the universe, and that our new neighbors view us as nothing more than a resource to be exploited. They have gravely underestimated what it means to threaten humanity. Today, we showed them that we do not surrender, we do not submit, and we do not go quietly into slavery. Today, we showed the galaxy what humans do to those who threaten our freedom." The industrial transformation that followed would become legendary. Every factory, every laboratory, every resource on Earth was converted to a single purpose: preparing for the war that was now inevitable. Humanity had tasted blood and discovered they were very good at spilling it. The Confederation Council chamber had not seen such heated debate in 4 centuries. Elder Zexthal, ancient even by Zephyrian standards, stood before the assembled representatives of 47 species, his normally calm demeanor cracked by something unprecedented: failure. "The humans destroyed 38% of the 47th Pacification Fleet using primitive kinetic weapons and nuclear devices," he announced, his voice carrying across the vast chamber. "This level of casualties is unacceptable for a simple integration operation." War leader Korth, scarred veteran of the Confederation's few actual military campaigns, studied the battle reports with growing unease. "Elder, these are not standard resistance patterns. Most species surrender after losing 20% of their defensive capability. The humans continued fighting even when facing complete destruction. This behavior is irrational by all known psychological models." Elder Zexthal dismissed the concern with practiced arrogance. "All primitives display some level of initial resistance. These humans simply require more direct application of force." Commander Veltar was clearly unprepared for their crude but effective weapons. 6 months later, Captain Jake Morrison, now Admiral Morrison after humanity's rapid military reorganization, stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, humanity's first true starship. Built in record time using reverse-engineered alien technology and human engineering improvements, it represented everything the aliens had underestimated about human adaptability. "Admiral, we're approaching the target system," reported Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez, now his tactical officer. "Long-range sensors confirm Confederation military installations on the 3rd and 4th planets, plus a substantial orbital shipyard." Morrison nodded, studying the tactical display with satisfaction. 6 months had been enough time for humanity to do what the Confederation considered impossible: not only reverse-engineer their faster-than-light technology, but improve upon it. Human engineers had approached alien designs with fresh perspectives, finding efficiencies that centuries of Confederation science had missed. "Dr. Parker, what do we know about this system?" Dr. Lisa Parker, now serving as Admiral Morrison's xenocultural advisor, consulted her notes. "Intelligence indicates this is a regional command center controlling 12 enslaved species across 6 systems. The Confederation has been using forced labor from these species to build their military infrastructure for over 2 centuries. Morrison felt the familiar cold anger that had driven humanity's war effort. And the species themselves, still alive, still enslaved, still hoping for rescue that they believe will never come. "Sir, our psychological profiles suggest these species will view us as liberators if we can demonstrate effective resistance to Confederation forces." The attack began without warning or declaration, following tactics that would have horrified civilized species throughout the galaxy. Human ships appeared from hyperspace directly on top of their targets, launching missile salvos before enemy sensors could even register their presence. The Confederation garrison, expecting weeks of advance notice before any possible threat could arrive, found itself under attack by an enemy that treated war as a science to be perfected rather than a formal ritual to be observed. Colonel Sam Turner led the first human ground assault, his Marines hitting the surface installations while the space battle still raged overhead. The Confederation ground forces were well equipped and properly trained for suppressing civilian populations, but they had never faced soldiers who treated every mission as a potential suicide run. "Remember, people, we're not here to occupy territory," Turner reminded his troops as they advanced through the alien complex. "We're here to break things, free slaves, and get out before reinforcements arrive, fast, brutal, and gone." The alien defenders expected formal battle lines and honorable engagement protocols. Instead, they faced human soldiers who moved through their installations like ghosts, striking from unexpected angles and vanishing before defensive fire could be coordinated. Every human squad carried enough explosives to level a building. Every soldier was trained in demolitions, and their tactical doctrine focused on maximum destruction with minimum exposure. In the slave quarters, Turner's team found their first confirmation of everything Dr. Parker had theorized. Thousands of beings from a dozen different species, all bearing the marks of forced labor and systematic oppression. The joy on their faces when they realized these strange new aliens were there to help them was something Turner would remember for the rest of his life. "You're free," he told them through translation devices cobbled together from captured Confederation equipment. "We're humans, and we're here to make sure you stay free." The liberation of the Kepler station system became a template for human warfare that terrified the Confederation. Human forces would appear without warning, destroy military targets with ruthless efficiency, evacuate enslaved populations to safe systems, and vanish before Confederation reinforcements could arrive. They didn't fight wars the way civilized species did, with formal declarations and negotiated terms. They fought like pack hunters, striking weak points and avoiding direct confrontation until victory was assured. Back on Earth, the industrial transformation continued at a pace that amazed even the humans driving it. Dr. Carl Lewis, now director of the Terran Weapons Development Program, stood in a factory that had produced automobiles 6 months earlier and now turned out starship weapons at a rate that strained belief. "The key insight," he explained to a visiting delegation of recently liberated aliens, "is that humans have always been good at making tools to kill things. We just never had to scale it up to interstellar warfare before." The delegation leader, a reptilian being called Sektar, who had spent 30 years in Confederation labor camps, watched human workers assembling weapons with practiced efficiency. "Your species approaches war differently than the Confederation. They build weapons to intimidate. You build weapons to destroy." Lewis nodded grimly. "The Confederation has spent centuries conquering helpless civilizations. They've forgotten what real war looks like. We're going to remind them." News of human victories spread through Confederation space faster than official communications could suppress it. Species that had spent centuries in bondage began to whisper about the strange new aliens who actually fought back, who treated warfare as total commitment rather than political maneuvering. Some began to hope. Others began to plan. Admiral Morrison coordinated the liberation of 3 more systems before the Confederation finally managed to organize an effective response. The Battle of Rigel 7 lasted 18 hours and ended with another human victory, but at a cost that reminded everyone this was still a war between primitives and advanced technology. "We're winning," Morrison reported to Earth Command, "but we're winning because they don't know how to fight a real war. The moment they adapt to our tactics, this gets much harder." General Collins, now Supreme Commander of Human Forces, nodded from his bunker beneath the Australian outback. "How many liberated systems can we count on for support?" "Sir, we've got solid commitments from 8 species across 12 systems. They're providing intelligence, supplies, and some volunteer fighters. The Confederation thought enslaved species would never cooperate against them. They were wrong." As human forces prepared for their next operation, Elder Zexthul convened an emergency session of the Confederation Council. The reports streaming in from the frontier were unprecedented in their implications. An entire sector in open revolt, Confederation forces retreating from systems they had controlled for centuries, and enslaved species openly allying with the human aggressors. "This cannot be allowed to continue," he declared to the assembled delegates. "These humans have introduced chaos into our ordered galaxy. They must be eliminated before their disease of rebellion spreads further." War Leader Korth, his scarred face grim with the knowledge of what was coming, stood to address the council. "Elder, with respect, I don't think you understand what we're facing. These humans don't fight wars to achieve political objectives. They fight wars to ensure their species survives. That makes them more dangerous than any enemy we've ever encountered. The grand fleet of the Zephyrian Confederation had not been assembled in over 4 centuries, not since the final conquest of the Alterian Resistance. Now, over 3,000 warships converged on the Proxima sector, where human forces had established their forward operating base. Elder Zexthul stood on the command bridge of the massive dreadnought Eternal Dominion, watching as the largest military formation in galactic history prepared to end the human threat permanently. "This will be the final demonstration of Confederation superiority," he announced to his assembled fleet commanders. "These primitive humans have been fortunate in their encounters with minor garrison forces. Today, they face the full might of civilization itself." War Leader Korth, commanding the tactical elements of the Grand Fleet, felt less confident. His intelligence reports painted a disturbing picture of human capabilities, adaptive technology, unpredictable tactics, and an alliance network that now included 6 liberated species providing everything from intelligence to manufacturing support. "Elder, our reconnaissance indicates the humans have significantly upgraded their fleet capabilities. They're no longer using purely primitive technology. Some of their vessels appear to incorporate advanced systems we don't recognize." Zexthul dismissed the concern with characteristic arrogance. "Stolen technology wielded by savages remains inferior to proper Confederation engineering. Proceed with the assault." Admiral Jake Morrison stood in the command center of the human battle station orbiting Proxima 5, studying tactical displays that showed the approaching alien armada. 3,000 enemy ships against humanity's largest fleet. 400 vessels of various sizes, supported by orbital weapons platforms and the industrial capacity of 6 allied species. "Sir, final intelligence reports from our Calarian allies confirm Confederation fleet composition," reported Captain Rodriguez, her expression grim. "We're looking at odds of roughly 7 to 1, and that's not counting their technological advantages." Dr. Lisa Parker, now Admiral Morrison's strategic advisor, pulled up psychological profiles of Confederation leadership. "Sir, our analysis suggests Elder Zexthul views this as a punishment expedition rather than a genuine military campaign. He expects us to break and run when faced with overwhelming force, just like every other species has done." Morrison nodded, feeling the familiar calm that came before battle. "And we're going to show him why human beings don't break and run." Dr. Lewis, status on the new weapon systems? Dr. Carl Lewis, coordinating from the Weapons Development Facility on Proxima 3, confirmed the deployment of humanity's latest innovations. "Admiral, all platforms are equipped with Mark 7 kinetic penetrators and quantum disruption warheads. We've also deployed the gravity mine network throughout the system." The gravity mines were humanity's most audacious innovation. Modified, asteroid mining charges that could create localized gravitational anomalies, pulling enemy ships out of formation and disrupting their careful battle plans, combined with human tactical doctrine that treated 3-dimensional space as a hunting ground rather than a formal battlefield. They represented everything the Confederation found incomprehensible about human warfare. The Battle of Proxima Sector began at 800 Standard, when Confederation forces entered the outer system expecting to find human defenders cowering behind their orbital platforms. Instead, they encountered empty space that erupted into violence as hundreds of gravity mines activated simultaneously, dragging the carefully organized alien formation into chaos. Captain Julie Green commanded the UES Retribution, one of humanity's newest heavy cruisers built with technology liberated from 6 different species and improved by human engineering. As Confederation ships struggled to re-establish formation after the gravity mine barrage, she led her squadron in the opening attack run, All units, remember the doctrine. Hit them fast, hit them hard, and don't give them time to adapt. We may be outnumbered, but we're not outfought. The human attack pattern violated every principle of civilized warfare the Confederation recognized. Instead of forming battle lines and engaging in formal combat, human ships struck from multiple vectors simultaneously, using their superior maneuverability to avoid direct confrontation while concentrating fire on isolated enemy vessels. On the Eternal Dominion, Elder Zexthal watched his orderly fleet dissolve into confusion as human forces swarmed through his formations like predators. Among prey, this is impossible. They cannot coordinate such complex maneuvers with their primitive command systems. War Leader Korth, monitoring the tactical displays with growing alarm, understood what the Elder had failed to grasp. Sir, they're not using centralized command and control. Each human ship is operating independently, adapting to battlefield conditions in real time. This is not formal warfare. This is pack hunting behavior applied to space combat. The realization came too late. Human forces had spent months studying Confederation tactics, preparing for exactly this scenario. Every ship captain knew the plan, every squadron leader understood their role, and every human warrior carried the absolute conviction that retreat meant extinction for their species. The second phase of the battle began when Captain Rodriguez led the assault group directly into the heart of the Confederation formation, targeting their command vessels with kamikaze runs that horrified the alien crews. Her ship, badly damaged and leaking atmosphere, rammed into the bridge of a Confederation heavy cruiser before exploding in a fireball that took both vessels. Sir, the humans are using their damaged ships as weapons, Korth reported, his voice tight with something approaching panic. They're not retreating when their vessels become combat ineffective. They're turning them into guided missiles. This was beyond the experience of any Confederation officer. In civilized warfare, damaged ships withdrew for repairs. Crews surrendered when facing certain death. The humans seemed to view their own deaths as simply another weapon to be employed against their enemies. The turning point came when human allied forces entered the battle from the system's outer edge. 6 species worth of ships and weapons technology coordinated by human tactical doctrine. The Calarian energy projectors, Thraxian missile systems, and Mordant stealth technology had all been integrated into a combined fleet that fought with human determination and alien innovation. Elder Zexthal found his flagship under direct attack by ships that shouldn't have been able to penetrate his defensive screens, using weapons that combined technologies from across known space in ways that defied conventional understanding. The humans had done more than steal alien technology. They had synthesized it into something new and terrifying. All ships, general retreat, Korth ordered, overriding the Elder's authority for the first time in his career. Reform at rally point 7 and prepare for hyperspace withdrawal. The grand fleet of the Zephyrian Confederation, the largest military force ever assembled, broke and ran. Of 3,000 ships that had entered the Proxima sector expecting easy victory, fewer than 1,200 limped away from the battlefield. The humans had lost nearly half their fleet, but they had achieved something unprecedented in galactic history. They had defeated the Confederation in open battle. On Proxima 5, Admiral Morrison surveyed the wreckage of the greatest space battle in human history. The cost had been terrible, but the message was clear. Humanity and its allies could not only resist Confederation dominance, they could defeat it. Dr. Parker studied the retreating alien fleet through long-range sensors. Sir, intelligence indicates this defeat has shaken the Confederation Council. Some member species are beginning to question Confederation invincibility. Morrison nodded grimly. Then it's time to show them what comes next. We've proven we can defend ourselves. Now we prove we can take the fight to them. The Battle of Proxima Sector marked the beginning of the end for the Zephyrian Confederation. Across their empire, enslaved species began to revolt, encouraged by news that someone had finally stood up to their oppressors and won. The humans had done more than win a battle. They had shattered the myth of Confederation invincibility. But Morrison knew this was far from over. The aliens would adapt, regroup, and return with new tactics and improved technology. The difference was that humans would be ready for them, because humans had learned long ago that survival required constant vigilance and the willingness to do whatever was necessary to protect their own. The Confederation Council chamber was half empty when Elder Zexthul called the emergency session to order. 12 species had already withdrawn from the Confederation, declaring neutrality in what they diplomatically called the current unpleasantness. Another 8 had sent only minor representatives, clearly hedging their bets on the outcome of humanity's war against their former overlords. The situation is manageable, Zexthul insisted, his voice carrying less authority than it had 6 months earlier. The humans have achieved temporary tactical victories through savage tactics and stolen technology. They remain primitives playing with tools they do not understand. War leader Korth studied the strategic displays with growing despair. Red markers indicated human-allied systems, growing like a cancer across the galactic map. Yellow markers showed Confederation worlds in open revolt. Green markers representing loyal Confederation territory were becoming increasingly isolated islands in a sea of rebellion. Elder, with respect, the situation is far from manageable, Korth replied, his scarred face grim with the knowledge of military realities. We've lost 60% of our fleet strength, 40% of our industrial capacity, and our member species are abandoning the Confederation faster than we can negotiate with them. The truth was worse than even Korth admitted. Human forces had evolved beyond simple resistance into something the galaxy had never seen, a liberation movement backed by military technology that improved daily through captured alien innovations and human engineering ingenuity. Every victory brought new allies, new technology, and new resources to the growing human coalition. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance as humanity's largest fleet approached the Confederation homeworld of Zephyr Prime. 2 years of warfare had transformed him from an orbital station commander into the most feared military leader in known space, but he took no satisfaction from the fear his name inspired among Confederation forces. "Sir, we're receiving surrender offers from 17 Confederation worlds along our approach route," reported Captain Rodriguez, now commanding her own task force within Morrison's armada. "They're requesting immediate integration into the Terran Alliance and offering to provide intelligence on remaining Confederation strongholds." Dr. Lisa Parker, studying the psychological profiles of Confederation leadership, looked up from her analysis. "Admiral, our sources indicate Elder Zexthul is preparing for what he calls a final demonstration of Confederation resolve. Intelligence suggests he's willing to destroy entire worlds rather than accept defeat." Morrison felt the familiar cold, anger that had driven humanity's war effort for 2 years. "Terrorist tactics against civilian populations?" "Yes, sir. The psychological profile indicates he views mass casualties as an acceptable cost for maintaining the illusion of Confederation superiority. He's prepared to destroy multiple worlds if it forces us to negotiate from a position of weakness." The Admiral considered this information, weighing it against everything humanity had learned about their enemies. The Confederation had never faced a species that refused to be intimidated by threats against innocent lives. They were about to discover that threatening civilians only made humans more determined to eliminate the threat permanently. "Dr. Parker, prepare a transmission to the Confederation Council. Full diplomatic protocol, maximum distribution to all known Confederation worlds and neutral systems." The message that Admiral Morrison broadcast to the galaxy became legendary for its simplicity and absolute conviction. Standing on his bridge, wearing the simple uniform of the Earth Defense Force, he spoke directly to the camera with the calm certainty of someone who had never doubted the outcome of this war. "Citizens of the Confederation worlds, this is Admiral Morrison of the Terran Alliance. Your leaders have threatened to destroy innocent populations rather than accept the reality of your military defeat. This is unacceptable. The Terran Alliance offers all Confederation worlds immediate protection and membership in our coalition. Any world that requests our protection will receive it. Any leader who threatens civilian populations will be treated as a war criminal and hunted to the ends of the galaxy." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within hours of Morrison's broadcast, 47 Confederation worlds had declared independence and requested Terran Alliance protection. The remaining Confederation military forces found themselves defending isolated positions, while human fleets moved to secure systems that had voluntarily joined the growing human coalition. Elder Zexathol, isolated on Zephyr Prime with the remnants of his personal fleet, made his final desperate gambit. The ancient Confederation homeworld had planetary defense systems that could sterilize continents, weapons that had been built to ensure no rebellion could ever threaten the center of Confederation power. If we cannot rule, then we will ensure no one else can, he declared to his remaining loyal officers. Activate the planetary bombardment systems. Target the major population centers of the rebellious worlds. Let the galaxy see the cost of defying the Confederation. War leader Korth, faced with orders to commit genocide against billions of innocent beings, made the decision that ended the Confederation forever. I cannot follow that order, Elder. No honorable warrior can. The arrest of Elder Zexthul by his own military commanders removed the last obstacle to peace negotiations. Within days, Confederation forces across the galaxy were laying down their weapons and requesting terms from the Terran Alliance. Colonel Amy Rodriguez, now commanding the 1st Terran Marine Division, led the final assault on Zephyr Prime, not to conquer the Confederation homeworld, but to arrest war criminals and secure the liberation of the galaxy's last enslaved populations. Her forces encountered no resistance. The Confederation military had finally understood that they were fighting not invaders, but liberators. The new galactic order that emerged from humanity's victory surprised everyone, including the humans themselves. The Terran Alliance was built on voluntary membership and mutual defense rather than conquest and dominance. Former Confederation worlds discovered that their new human allies were more interested in trade agreements and cultural exchange than tribute and forced labor. Dr. Carl Lewis, now director of the Alliance Technology Sharing Program, stood in a laboratory that brought together scientists from 30 different species, all working on projects that would have been impossible under Confederation rule. The key insight, he explained to a gathering of former enemies turned allies, is that cooperation produces better results than coercion. The transformation was remarkable. Species that had spent centuries as slaves or subjects discovered their cultures valued and their technologies appreciated. The humans had not conquered the galaxy. They had freed it to reach its potential. Admiral Morrison, now commander of the Alliance Defense Fleet, found himself dealing with challenges he had never anticipated during the war. Peace was more complex than warfare, requiring diplomacy and patience rather than determination and violence. Sir, we're receiving first contact requests from 3 previously unknown species in the Outer Rim, Captain Rodriguez reported during their morning briefing. They've heard about the Alliance and want to establish diplomatic relations. Morrison nodded, reflecting on how much had changed since that first alien contact over Earth 2 years earlier. What's our standard first contact protocol now? Dr. Parker, now serving as Alliance diplomatic advisor, smiled at the question. We offer friendship, trade agreements, mutual defense pacts, and cultural exchange programs. We also provide a simple warning. The Alliance protects its members. Anyone who threatens our friends will discover why the galaxy calls humans the deadliest species in known space. The warning was not idle boasting. The Alliance Defense Fleet patrolled the galaxy with quiet efficiency, ensuring that the age of conquest and slavery would never return. Former Confederation worlds that had feared human occupation discovered instead that their new protectors were more interested in preventing future conflicts than fighting new wars. On Earth, President Thompson addressed a world that had become the unofficial capital of galactic civilization. 2 years ago, we were alone in the universe, unaware that hostile aliens considered us nothing more than potential slaves. Today, we stand at the center of an alliance of free peoples who chose cooperation over conquest. We never wanted to be the galaxy's policeman, but someone has to ensure that the strong protect the weak instead of preying upon them. The final scene played out in a conference room on Alliance Station, humanity's first interstellar diplomatic facility. Representatives from 43 species sat around a table discussing trade agreements, cultural exchange programs, and joint scientific ventures. At the head of the table, Admiral Morrison welcomed the newest member to their growing alliance. Ambassador. Kexlan, the Terran Alliance welcomes your people. We offer friendship, mutual support, and a simple promise. As long as you remain peaceful toward your neighbors, the Alliance will ensure your safety from anyone foolish enough to threaten you. The ambassador, representing a species that had just achieved interstellar travel, looked around the table at beings from across the galaxy united in common cause. Admiral Morrison, my people have one question. Is it true that humans are the deadliest warriors?